Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel, or welcome if you're new here. This is Stacy, and today I'm going to show you how to cut out a stamped image using your ScanNCut. And I'm going to be using this Casual Friday stamps that it is called Terrific Flowers. I really do love their stamps. They've got really great fonts, just whimsical designs, and very funny. They have some really great snarky sentiments too. So I want to stamp out this flower, and we're going to cut it on the ScanNCut. I'm going to show you how to do a direct cut, and then I'm also going to show you how to do a scan to cut data, where you can possibly then create an SVG file or of the cut, of cutting the flower, or you can also maybe create a shadow layer for the flower. It's kind of the same way that you would do the sentiments, which I actually did another video, and I will link that down below or up in the video here. But you can do the same thing. The shadow layer is going to be the same process for the font, the sentiments, or the actual images. Doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and get started on stamping this out. I'm going to do what I always do to my stamps, and I cut off the top because I don't like dealing with the little glue, little sticky tab down here and it getting stuck on stuff. It's annoying. So I'll pull this out. There we go. And I'm gonna get my Misty. You just need little Misty, and I'm trying something new. I have the silicone mat that we all picked up at QVC, thanks to Tracy Fear finding it for us. And so I've been just using this underneath it's got the mouse pad underneath, because this is a clear stamp. So I'm hoping that it's just gonna hold the paper good. And I don't have to use the sticky grid, because I was using the sticky grid and I was pulling up cards that I had already completed, and I was doing the sentiments on the inside, and it was kind of curling the card stock. And so I thought, let me try this. Okay, so I'm gonna do, this is 80-pound Catherine Pooler. And if you've ever ink blended using a silicone mat, it really holds your cardstock really well. So I'm hoping that it does that. I may put this down just to make sure that when I put the stamp down for the first time, it doesn't lift the paper. Not that it matters too much, because I can put it back down. I'm not stamping it right away. But so I'm gonna get this big beautiful flower. And I'm just going to put it right in the middle. And I'm using the 80-pound cardstock just because I wouldn't normally use this 80-pound cardstock. It's just what I grabbed. I would use something that wasn't necessarily as smooth, because this cardstock is really good for ink blending. And I'm not going to be doing ink blending, but who knows? Maybe I will. Yeah, maybe I will. We'll see. But it's great paper. Okay, so we're set. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use my good old VersaFine Clair in Nocturne, and have my Blue Night Rubber Stamps little handle over here so that I don't drop anything. This is a new stamp, so if you like to do what Nancy does and condition your stamps when you first get them, you can put some Versamark on it just to kind of help it, but we'll see how this does. And let me get my little FSC Chucky. It came out pretty good. I'll just do one more. And that's the great thing about a Misty, or any stamp positioner for that matter. And my paper did not move. It worked beautifully. Okay, that looks great. Got a little. Okay, so, and it just came out perfectly. So I'm going to take you over to the ScanNCut. I'm going to put this on one of my mats and I'll meet you over there. Okay, so I have my image attached to my mat and I'm going to turn my machine on. So I'm using the SDX125. So this is going to work the same on any machine, the SDX or the CMs. CM350 is the most common one. And if it's not the same, I'll let you know. All right, so it's going to make sure you have your mat away from the rollers when it wants to move to the initial position after you start it up. And so then I'm going to place this, load my mat. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and scan to cut data, because when I do a direct cut, it's going to cut this out. But if I do a scan to cut data first, it'll send the image to the machine and I can work with that later. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and go to scan. And then we're going to do, so direct cut is if we want to go ahead and have it scan now and cut. Scan to cut data is what it's going to scan the image and then it's just going to send it to my computer or send it to wherever I tell it to. Now on the SDX125, you can change your scan area to be 12 by 6 or 12 by 12. So you can have it scan the whole mat or you can have it scan only the top half of the mat, which is great. It kind of takes less time for it scanning and so forth. So I'm going to do 12 by 6 because my image is on a A2 size card front. So I'll hit OK. And recognition mode, you've got black and white and you have color. I'm going to go with black and white right now, but if for some reason you ever have an issue with something scanning and it not really scanning well, change it to color and try that as well. And I'm going to hit OK. And then we're going to go ahead and hit start and it's going to scan my image. And it only scans the top half of the mat, so it doesn't go all the way in and all the way out because it doesn't have to. So that's a great added feature to the SDX models. Okay, so now it's processing it. Okay, so it just scanned the image. Now remember, we're doing scan to cut data. So what it's going to do is it's just going to ask some basic information like, do I want the image welded? Do I want, so just the outline? Do I want the ins and outs of this image identified, or whatever this is? So it gets all the bits and pieces. I don't want that. I just want the outside. Now it's picking up a lot of stuff from my mat, so I'm going to frame the image better so that it will exclude all that stuff. Okay, so I've got that. Now I'm going to go to preview. Now, if I wasn't able to get rid of like frame up, or let's say around the image for some reason had a bunch of little marks and stuff, then I could use ignore object size. And the way that works is you just click on this and then whatever is smaller than this number will be ignored. So the higher this number goes, the more that it'll ignore. Eventually it'll ignore your whole entire image because you'll get to be, you know, that size. So I don't need to do that though, because my scanned image was pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I only want the outline. Now it's asking, where do you want to send this? Do you want to send it to your machine? Do you want to send it to the Brother Canvas workspace or a USB? I always send it to the Canvas workspace because that's just going to send it straight to my laptop. Well, it'll send it to the cloud and then I can access it with my laptop. So we're going to wait for that to go. Okay, so that's sent. So now that one is sent, we can go ahead and cut this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit home and it's going to say, okay, to delete all patterns. Yes, because I'm going to rescan it and I'm going to do a direct cut now. So I'm going to hit scan and I'm going to hit direct cut. Now direct cut is going to scan the image and cut it, not all in one step, but it's going to scan it and then ask me some questions and so forth, and then it'll cut it. So let's go ahead and save it to the machine because it's just using this machine or the cloud to process the image doesn't save it anywhere. It's just using it as a, like a processor. So I'm going to hit the machine. Now again, I'm going to keep it 12x6 on the mat and hit start. So it's going to do the same thing where it's just going to scan my mat, only the top 6 inches. So now it has the image on the screen. And yep, it scanned it. So I'm going to hit OK. It's got all that funky stuff again. So I'm going to go ahead and frame that up. And I'm going to hit preview. And that looks good. So now what I want to do is, at this point, I'm just going to hit OK because I want to see what the cut is going to be. So it's asking now, do you want an offset? So do I want an outline, or do I want it cut right up against the stamped image? I'm going to leave it as a 0 right now so that we can see how well it cuts just the image out directly. So the thing I want to do is go to edit, and I want to zoom in because there is a cut image on here, and I'm going to zoom into 400%. And so I'm going to look at this closely to see if there are any intersecting lines where it would completely cut it off. So I'm going to just scroll down, and it looks like for the most part, might be a little issue there, but I think we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't see it cutting anything off. I see it just basically cutting out the outline. So we're going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK again. And one more time. Now it's for the CM350. It will ask you if you want to cut it or not. So you're going to go in here to cut. And then for the CM350 though, you will have to adjust your blade. The SDX models have the auto blade, which is amazing. One of the biggest things that I love about it is that I don't have to do that. I don't have to touch anything with the blade. I literally just put the blade in, and then it's going to automatically test the mat versus the paper and decide how thick it should cut. So if you are really worried about it though, you can do a test cut and you can add that. I have test cuts in some of my other videos, and it's the same way on both machines. But otherwise, we will go ahead and we're just going to cut it. My pressure, speed, my half cut is off. Mostly I just want to care about my half cut. Everything else is going to be adjusted. So let's go ahead and hit start. That's the auto blade. So I just checked the mat, checked the paper, and now it's going to cut. All right, let's see how it did. So it says finish cutting on the screen. So I'm going to just hit OK. And then I'm going to hit unload the mat. Okay, so it's basically saying you scan this image and it's going to shift. So make sure that, you want to eject the mat, because if there's anything else you want to do with this, you don't want to remove it. But I cut it out, scanned it and cut it, and that's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to say OK. So it unloaded, and then we are going to see how well this did. I'd say it did pretty amazing, considering that is the cut file. That's the cut, and it got all the little, what is that, the stamens of the flower. So let's get this off very carefully, and it does come with a little spatula, so if you're worried about, lifting it and ripping it or something, you can use the spatula. I'm just being extra careful. And I'm bending the mat, trying not to bend my flower. This just goes to show you how detailed it is, because it got every little stem. Perfect. And wow. That looks pretty amazing. It didn't get as detailed in this one, and I noticed that on the the screen, but it's still great. It's still wonderful. Okay, so that's how you do the scan and cut, the direct cut. So now let me show you how you can do the scan to cut data and what we can do with that file. So we're going to go back over to the computer. Okay, so we're back at the computer and I've opened my Brother Canvas workspace software on my computer. And I'm going to, this is the opening screen, so I'm going to go ahead and close the shapes panel. And then to bring in a image that you have scanned for scan to cut data, you actually are going to go to File, Import from your cutting machine, and then FCM file. So that is the image that we scanned. It's my stamped image, and it's the scan of it. So this is essentially the same cut file that we just cut out, because it scanned it the same way both times. Sometimes you won't get that. It won't do that. It'll scan it differently each time, but in this case we were lucky and it did scan it the same. So from here what you can do is do the select button, select the scanned image, and then we can come to the edit panel, scroll down, and you can do the offset. So the offset dialog box is going to ask you how big do you want the offset to be, and you can adjust this down to 0.4, and you can go out pretty big. I don't think I've ever gone more than 0.24, but who knows what project you're using this for. So 0.04 is the smallest. You want the offset direction to go outward. You can go inward, and it'll show it being inward. And it's showing that it's doing an offset for this and also the outside. So we want to go outward from the outline. And we want the corners to be rounded. You can also make them a little different and make them beveled. And then the original line, you can leave it as is or you can delete it. So if you're going to be creating another file, like another SVG, like I want the original to stay the same, but I also want an offset, then you would do leave as is. And I'll show you, I'll do it that way so you can see, because you can always delete it afterwards. So let's do a shadow layer. So we're going to do a larger layer. So it's going to be like 0.24. It's going to be outward. I want it rounded, and I want to leave the original line as is. Now it says here, create an offset line only around the outer edge. That is what we want to do. However, you can make it for the inside and outside on certain images. This one, we just wanted the outside. It doesn't really have any inside images. I'm going to hit OK. So it made this huge shadow layer, but it also has the regular, it doesn't have a scan of the image. So the stamp that was scanned is not here. So this is just the outline, which is fine. So we're going to just go ahead and we can separate the two. So you have the original. So this would be the SVG cut file to cut it out as is. It's a little close. I don't think I would want to try and send this to my machine and line it up on the actual stamped image. I think it scanned very well, the stamped image, so I probably would just do that. So I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to just make this one a little bit bigger offset. Not quite the 0.24. Let's go 0.8, and we're going to keep everything else the same and hit OK. And so it's showing, and I don't like how it did that. It's doing this inside right here. It's making it all one. So let's go a little bit smaller. So at this point you can do undo and it'll bring it back. Or you could go into the offset and you can just click it again and change it to inward. Bring it in and then go out again. So let's go to 0.4. That's better. So now it still has the definition, and that would work for me. So let's go ahead and select that one and put it over here because that is going to be my 0.4 offset. Let's try one more And let's try doing it 0.8, but then say I want the ins and outs. Let's see what happens with that. That actually did what I wanted it to. So there's the difference between the two. So doing the 0.8, it didn't do the inside. I didn't think there was really any insides, but it sees these as being insides, which makes sense. So it's doing the inside and the outside. So I actually really like that. And the other thing too is with this shadow, we can actually make a better shadow now that I'm looking at this. So let's just go ahead and move that out of the way. And this is another reason why you might want to keep the original lines every time you do this, so that you have the original to work with and you just keep doing different offsets. So I'm going to do a bigger offset, and then I'm going to say ins and outs. Let's see what that does. I like that. I like that better than this, because this is basically the same, but we don't really need it that big. So let me go in and make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to go inward. I'm not sure how it's going to work with the insides though. So let's see here. Yeah, it didn't really do what I wanted it to. So let's do undo, undo, and undo. Okay, so we're going to start that one again. So we're going to go a little bit less than, and I want everything, I'm going outward. Okay, here we go. I can keep this one because it's there. It's just going to be in a file, because when you send this back to your machine, you can easily delete these items. Keep what you want and delete the rest, and just have it cut whatever it is you want it to cut. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and it's saving it as a Canvas workspace project. That's what .cwprj means. And I'm going to call it, so it's Casual Fridays, and it's called Terrific Flowers. And I'll call it that because that is what it is. So it's got to be something, and save it obviously someplace where it's easily found. Like if you I have a ScanNCut projects folder, and then I keep all of my ScanNCut scans, offsets, stuff like that for my stamps in that folder. Okay, so that's saved. Now what I want to do is I want to send this back to the machine. So I'm going to then say export, transfer the FCM file. And okay, so it's saying that some of the stuff is outside the red dash line of the artboard, which is fine. So let us zoom out. See how this is hanging out over here? That's a no-no. So you just got to move everything back. And then I'm going to save it again. And now I'm going to do it again and send it to my machine. So you can export the FCM file, which would just be send it to your computer or an external hard drive or whatever you have plugged into your computer. Transfer via the internet, which is what I want to do. I want to send it to the machine, or transfer via USB cable, which I don't have connected. But if you don't have Wi-Fi connected, then this would be an option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer via the internet, and it's going to say okie dokie, that's done. I hit OK. Now I can close this out, and I'm going to go back to the machine. All right, we're back at the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on because I did shut it down after we were done with the last one. And it's gonna, now the main reason why it does this is it says the carriage will move to the initial position, keep your hands away from the carriage. The reason it does this is if for some reason it shut down with a mat in the loaded position, it will kick it out because it happens. Sometimes you have the mat and you walk away from the machine when it's doing a project, then you don't come back until the next day because it will shut off after so many hours, I believe. I'm not 100% sure what the time is that, but it does have an auto shut off. But it also has an auto memory. So when it turns back on, it possibly will ask you If it was shut down in the middle of a project, like you paused it and then you walked away and it did an auto shut off, when it turns back on, it'll ask you if you want it to complete, continue. If it's finished the project and then it shuts down, then it'll kick the mat out when you turn it back on. So that is what this is doing here. So I'm gonna hit OK. All right, and I'm gonna do retrieve data because I want it from my computer or the cloud in this case. So what I just sent to it, it's going to pull up. So there's all the images we just created. So what I want to do is I want to cut out, let's see, I think I'm going to cut out 2 of them. I'm going to cut out one of them in white paper because I want to stamp on it. And then I want to cut out another one in some type of fancy paper because I want to use it as a shadow layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove some images that I don't want it to cut out. So I don't want that one. And so we're going to go into the edit and that one's selected and I'm going to hit the trash can. It will ask you if you want to delete, and it is not undoable. There's no undo button for if you delete something accidentally. You just have to literally go back to your computer and resend it to your machine. Actually, I wouldn't have to resend it to my machine. That's a lie. You would just have to go home on the ScanNCut and then go and pull it back in again, retrieve data again. So I'm going to delete that one. So yes. And then that one I want to delete as well. And if you wanted to do multiple, you can actually click on this button here. And then you can do select all, and then you can deselect. So if I knew the 3 I did not want right off the bat, I could have came in here and done that. So I want to keep, I think I want to keep those 2 actually. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Okay. And then we're going to delete that one. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to move this to wherever I want it at the moment. Because I will reposition them once I put the paper on my mat. So this one's going to be on white paper. Let's do this way. We'll put the white paper over here, and this one's going to be cut out of, like, let's do some foil cardstock or something. Or black. Black would be good. Let's just do black piece paper. So we'll have a black shadow. So let me be right back. I'm going to get the paper on my mat. Okay, so I have my paper on the mat and I did the white on the left and the black on the right, which is what I want because I'm going to stamp on this one after I cut it out, and then I'm going to use this one over here, the black, to be my matting layer or shadow layer. Now, the great thing about the ScanNCut is that you have the images on your screen that you're going to be cutting out, but you're not limited to just like the top left corner. You can actually, I'm going to scan my paper in, and then I'm going to tell it, I'm going to move my images to my paper so that I utilize every single piece of, real estate of my paper. So we're going to hit OK because those are what we want. And then this is the button to scan. So I'm going to set up and I'm going to load. Okay, now that it's loaded, I'm going to go ahead and hit the scan button. So this is going to scan my mat. So you're going to be scanning the mat to show us the background. And it doesn't have to be in any specific place, just be where you want it to be. If you've got a spot on your mat that's more sticky than another spot, put it there. It doesn't matter. And it's going to scan the whole entire mat. There's no option to do only half the mat on this one, which is totally fine. So now if you look at the screen, obviously you can't see this one because it's black, but this one I can see that there's no grid lines. So that's where I can see that my paper is, and this is the cut. So this one, what you can do is you can go to Tools, and my background is set to the darkest right now. So I can go ahead and set it to lighter, hit OK. Now I can see my black paper scanned, but it's no longer black. And so now I can see the 2 and exactly where I need to put my images. And I think, let me do this one first because I think, okay, and then let me go back and make it dark again.
Yeah, because I can see the outline of this one a little bit better when the paper's darker because I can see the bottom of the paper.
You can also look at your mat and figure out, okay, it's a half a square down and, 1 square over kind of thing. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. And then select, it's going to ask you what you want to do with this. So I'm going to cut and start. Finish cutting. I'm going to unload my mat. So we're going to pull off this one. Okay, that looks good. I like it. And then the black one. So this is basically your shadow layer, which I think turned out really good. And you could always color this, but y'all know me, I don't color, so I don't know. I wouldn't be doing this with the stamp anyway. That wasn't the intent of the stamp when I got it, but definitely you could color it. And then also I'm going to stamp on this piece, and then you can use it this way as well. And that looks really pretty. I like that. That lines up perfect. All right, so let's go back to the desk and let's stamp this. I did want to say one more thing. So the image that is on my machine right now, it's got the 2 images that I just cut. And so when I go home, it's going to ask to delete the patterns. It's going to delete the patterns from the machine, but it doesn't delete them. I mean, if you saved it to the machine, it would be in the machine, but I have it saved to the cloud. So, and I have it saved to my computer. So I have that file now. And anytime I ever want to use these cut files for the stamp, I can put a note in my stamp set that says, maybe the name or something like that, so that I know that I already have an SVG created, and then I can bring it out and I can cut it. Okay, we're back at the desk. So this is what we created. So we had the original stamped image. Don't mind this one. I had inky fingers. It happens to the best of us. And so then we scanned that in and we cut it out and did a very fine cut. It does very well with that. And that was the direct cut. And then we also did ScanNCut data of the same image, and we were able to then create these two. So what I want to do is I want to stamp on this one, and then I'm gonna put it on this. Okay, so I have a sticky grid sheet that I put in here now. It's by Sizzix, and so because the silicone mat wasn't holding it down, obviously, which is fine. So we're just going to go ahead and put this down. I just have to be careful because when I pull it up, I don't want it to rip or anything like that. So then we're going to place the stamp on it. We're going to pick it up and voila, that stays in place. Okay, I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use Warm Breeze from VersaFine Clear this time because I want a little pop of color. I don't color, but I can stamp in color, so hey. And then I'm not worried about that because there's nowhere for it to go except for on my sticky grid, which is totally fine. Now, be right back. I'm going to clean my stamp and let that sit for a minute or so because it is a pigment ink and it takes a little bit longer to dry than a dye-based ink. So I'll be right back. All right, so now we're going to remove this from the sticky grid. Just using a pokey tool, gently lifting it, and there you go. So then what I want to do next is I'm going to glue this on to here. And another thing you could do is if you wanted to, you could put some craft foam into your ScanNCut and you can cut out this image so that you could pop this up if you wanted to, or you could cut this out of craft foam and pop it up. So I'm going to glue this down. Be right back. So I went ahead and finished the card. I glued down the 2 pieces, and then I did a technique that I've been dying to try. So I took a piece of shimmer cardstock. It's just Recollections pink shimmer cardstock. I stamped in VersaFine Clair, this little hello, and then I use clear embossing powder to heat emboss it, and then I ran it through the embossing folder. You guys know how much I love embossing folders. So I ran it through the embossing folder to give it a little texture, and it's a cute little card. I love it. So I hope this video was helpful. And if you guys are interested in this card, then leave a comment down below, and I'll use a random comment generator and pick somebody who will get this cute little card sent to them. Otherwise, please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and make sure that you turn on your bell notifications for all videos so that you know when I post a video or when I go live. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I'm hoping that the SNR Creations from the Heart YouTube channel will be able to do some lives straight through YouTube rather than a third party. And so if you know anybody who would be interested in my videos, please share my video and ask them to subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.